to Check Out This Guy, a podcast where we talk about our own guys, and it is my turn to talk about some guys.
Finally, Morg can deliver on us guys.
I can deliver onto you some guys. I'll probably, I feel like I have maybe I don't have the most amount of guys that I will end up talking about, but like statistically I have just so many guys. Anyway, I'm Morg. My pronouns are they, he, and I'm the guy giver today.
I'm Emory. My pronouns are they, she, he, and I guess that makes me one of the guy receivers. Thank you for these guys.
I am Elvire. I am also a guy receiver. My pronouns are they, he, she.
I don't know why I said guy giver. Like that's
no, it's fine. I am a guy receiver now. This is not a thing I ever thought I'd be. My mom would be so proud if she knew.
So yeah, here I am gonna talk about today. I've brought it up in the Discord because it's changed a lot. I was skimming through some old notes from like back in like 2019 that I've even done. Like this story has been kicking around my head for like at least 4 years, if not longer, off and on. And that's kind of crazy to think about because holy shit. But I'll say what I said in the Discord, just like at first, sort of that it's about like about a space road trip kind of thing, where the three main characters are kind of like in a small shitty ship together. That's, you know, like kind of like it would be a car on a car trip kind of thing, and they learn to grow, like they learn and grow and eventually fall in love with each other, because I wanted to make like a story with like polyamory, because, you know, it's not as common, and I was like, oh, what if I had a throuple kind of as the characters.
Hell yeah. We love a slow burn throuple.
It actually started off with 4 originally. And I'll talk about the 4th one, but that's...
Sorry, 4th guy, you don't make the cut.
I guess not.
You fell off. You only had 2 hands to hold people.
Oh no! I'm just not... Yeah, it's I don't know. But the first one... So some of this is kind of like silly, like starting off, because... a lot of the initial ideas for these characters came into play because I got really into Pot of Greed.
Oh, hell yeah.
Like the podcast. And so I was like, oh, okay, I guess I just accidentally sort of changed Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters into my characters, sort of.
Listen, I spent my entire episode talking about how I essentially fucking palette swapped some Sonic characters.
Let's fucking
I mean, there was, you know, more to it than that. Kind of like used some archetypes as bases, but you know, sometimes that's what you fucking do. Sometimes it works great.
Yeah, and I mean they've changed since then, but like it started off with like it was also like partially inspired by well, I'll just start with the first character. I feel like I'm a little all over the place because but the first one is Tenacity, or 10 for short. And on the Discord I said I originally pictured them being if Seto Kaiba was a tiefling.
Let's go. Oh, they sound like an absolute fucker.
Yes.
Oh my god.
But they turned more into if Chaz was a tiefling, if that makes sense.
Oh, good.
Oh,
like
a character design.
Yeah, they're like way more of like I'm insecure about things, but I'm pretending I'm not, than like you know, like I don't know. I feel like Chaz is a lot more like fucking goofy about it. If that, you know.
Does then have it in them to be cheered on by a whole bunch of misfits who cling on to them.
Absolutely. They have to grow into it, though, you know? Like, early on, they're like, no, absolutely not. But, like, later on, they would be cheered on by some...
Is that I love him?
You know, the thing about Manjome is that he works better as a protagonist than Kaiba does. Like,
yes,
I think you could make an anime starring Manjome, you couldn't make one starring Kaiba, because Kaiba will never have character
exactly
growth. He'll just get progressively more deranged and build more space stations.
Exactly.
He can only get worse.
He will cure himself by blowing up islands, but otherwise he will not change, you know? Like, they're kind of an asshole, and they kind of stick being an asshole even though they changed a lot from, you know, being Kaiba to not, but I'm still, like, working on, like, what, I don't want to just make tiefling aliens, but I'm also like, but tieflings are really cool, and this is set in space, so I don't know. Oh well, I guess I am.
You know, fucking, who's gonna stop you?
Exactly. And then that was my number one, was to not copy tieflings whole cloth, and two, figure out how to make someone who is the kid of a CEO at all somehow redeemable in a story that is ideally not neo-lib as fuck. So they might just end up being a rich kid instead of just straight up like the kid of a CEO. But either way, they're like, and when I say kid, they're like in their early 20s. Like, they're like a kid to me, I guess. But they grew up as a rich kid, I guess. The second one is a character who I've changed the, like, name of, but I could not remember exactly what her name was. I think it was Ryoku or something, but I kept calling her Kaida. I think that was her last name. So I'm just gonna call her Kaida for now. So she's the person who, like, shares her body with something that's, I kept comparing to a Venom symbiote. Except it's more like magic-y than Venom. It's, you know, it's more like, it's like, a lot of this also stemmed off of, like, D&D stuff, so, like, they started off as kind of being like a warlock, you know, where they share a body with their patron, but it became more of, like, an accidental thing, and, like, you know, it also sounds a little bit like a Yugi Yami kind of thing, you know, where they're sharing a body. Like, there's a lot going on there, but it's like a little demon guy that, I think I called them Patrista at Trick for short, and I don't remember why, but that's fine. I'll just call them Trick. There's a lot of, like, I don't remember why I named these characters certain things, but I'm still very, like, I'm thinking about them a lot, but I'm also not, like, writing down everything about them now. So a lot of things have been lost to time. Like, where did this come from? I don't know.
Yeah, once again, that is kind of like the thing with, you know, these, you know, stories that you have in your head for a while and then, like, never actually commit to writing, because writing is very hard and time consuming. Yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah,
things definitely, like, shift around over time, and, you know, sometimes they, like, develop more, like, sometimes they kind of get left by the wayside and degrade a little bit, you know.
Yeah. So, and in a lot of ways, depending on how things turn out in the story that's still up in the air, it could still end up being kind of a quad, because there are two people and sharing a body here, kind of. Who knows? It's complicated. My relationship is complicated on Facebook, but it's because one of them is inside of me.
In a way, he is also a guy receiver. That's what I'm getting.
Yes. Kaida's also ended up being the person who was like the character I had come out during the story as non-binary. They're all non-binary, but Kaida's the only one that came out in the story as non-binary. Like the other two were non-binary before the story.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I think I forgot to mention in my episode, just like all the characters are trans. Just a thing that I maybe should have mentioned in passing. I don't know. Maybe I did say it. I forget.
Just assume if like Emory is the main character, they're trans.
I think at this point, if any of us make an OC, unless specifically stated that they're not trans, you can safely assume.
Exactly.
Or if they're not trans, they're a trans metaphor, like Kazuki, who's not trans technically, but is a trans metaphor. Anyway, but Kaida started off as like my Joey character. Like they were like this boneheaded like dumbass, and then became like, I don't know, something completely different. The fucking Venom holder character. So that's cool. But yeah, there was a lot of like, bickering between them and Tenacity. But yeah, Tenacity uses they, them pronouns. Kaida ends up using she and they. My last of the three that I like that are ending up together Trick uses it and they. Kind of anything, really. They don't really care. They're like, I'm not a person anyway. I don't fucking give a shit.
Just simply staring at gender and being like, oh no, thank you.
Exactly. Gabe is, I think they use they, he, and she, because Gabe goes by Gabrielle and Gabriella and is just like, yeah, that's all works. I don't fucking care. I love stuff. I love names. They are they were a character that originally I had leave a cult. A sci-fi cult, even though I have no idea how to write an ex-cult member, so I'm not 100% sure all that's going to stay in. But part of the reason they left is, they became disillusioned, but they also were kind of scorned because they had powers over plants. And could communicate with plants and stuff.
The plants are like, buddy, you gotta get out of there.
Buddy, you gotta leave. This is not right for you. My dude, your family is crazy. And yeah, they all end up being together on a spaceship. The fourth character, who I'm I think I was having a hard time figuring out how I wanted them to fit in. And I think they might still be a side character in the future, because I like the idea of them. But they were a robot named Steph, who was a robot that was built by Tenacity's, family, but, ended up, rebelling against that. And being, their own person. And I still kind of want them to stick around, but I'm I don't know if I want them, I don't know. I'm sad because I'm I also was considering having them join up with because Tenacity also has a sibling who is a lesbian trans woman who's kind of more just like chill than they are.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had jokingly had been like, oh yeah, she's like the girl, the not like other girls girl dating another girl, the girl who is like other girls girl. Like she's like, she's got like a gamer girlfriend or something, you know?
A classic alt-trad pairing.
Yeah. Again, those are like background characters, which is funny. I'm coming up with background characters for a story I don't have fully fleshed out yet. But yeah, I'm just kind of like thinking about them all the time, and I'm like, man, what would get these two people together who were like childhood rivals? That's like a good thought to have, is just childhood rivals to friends to lovers is really nice.
Yeah.
And you love it.
Mm-hmm.
And like Gabe feels kind of like a balancing force there. It's like kind of like a, yo, you cannot act like you're like children's selves anymore. We are stuck on this fucking spaceship together. You better get your ship together. I meant to say shit together, but get your ship together too, in this case, I guess. But
you need a guy to, you know, fucking, you know, if one of them is archetyped, you know, even a little bit off of Seto Kaiba, then I feel like you need someone to be like, okay, chill out a little.
Hey man, relax.
Just dial it back a bit.
I'm like a big fan of like Patrice, the Trick. Like they're like, I kept comparing them to Venom, but they're more like a snarky asshole that just like hangs around in Kaida's head all the time, and it's just like,
yeah, I think that's Venom that you just described.
Yeah. But they're not like, I'm going to eat you. I guess that's the only difference, maybe. Maybe they should threaten to eat people. I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind.
Just to spice it up a little.
But like, you know, they start off as being like this thing that like kind of fights with a lot, and then they become like closer than ever, of course, you know. And I'm like, wow, it's just like gender.
Hell yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I also made them the one that comes out during the story. Cool.
Yeah, so like, what's the story that you had in mind for these characters? I know, like, you mentioned it was a road trip story, so like, where are they coming from? Where are they headed to?
They like start off in like this little like kind of like space station outpost type thing. Like, I haven't seen much of Deep Space Nine, but that's kind of what I was picturing, where they like lived in a Deep Space Nine kind of thing, or like a maybe like a side, like from Gundam, you know, that sort of like this was made by people and they live there and they're working out of there. And I'm not sure why, but they had to leave. I think it's changed a lot why they had to leave. There were like a couple things like, you know, someone was corrupt in it, or like something happened to the space station, or like something like that. But like for some reason they had to leave, and they had like a short amount of time, and they kind of like, you know, like it starts off as being like stressful, but like turns more into a road trip, I guess, over time. It's very like in some ways it has like a lot of like, this is the start of a tabletop game that I could see happening, but like that was unintentional, but I think that just happened because of like a lot of my inspiration when I was first making it was based on like tieflings and warlocks and plant magic users that I guess would be like druids or something. Space druids, you know. That old chestnut. I think they were probably going to land. Like, I kind of wanted them to, like, go to a couple different planets. Like, I had, like, little short stories of them, like, stopping in various, like, little planets that have different atmospheres and different plant life and different, stuff to interact with. Because I realized, digging around a little bit, like, just before we started recording, so I didn't even get to read that much of it, I wrote parts of this as an attempt for doing, like, NaNoWriMo in 2019.
NaNoWriMo sounds extremely intense. Like, that is a lot of fucking writing to do in 1 month.
I've never managed more than a day. Even with planning beforehand.
I did like 5,000 or something. Like, pretty, small amounts. In high school, I did win twice, though.
Oh, hell yeah.
I'm like, how the fuck did I do that? How the fuck did I do that? I cannot anymore do that, and that's okay. I have a lot of issues with NaNoWriMo. I could go into a whole, like, rant about it. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't matter. I guess it does in the sense that a lot of my initial story beats, like, started as a nano. But I was just trying to force myself to write any of this, and obviously I needed something to start it, because I haven't written any, like, much since then.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like I have conflicted feelings about it, I guess.
Can we talk about for a second about just, like, how hard wring is?
It's hard!
It's really hard!
And, like, I don't know, just, like, boy, November is, like, at least for me, feels like a particularly bad month for it, because that's really when, like, the seasonal depression starts to kick in for me, and I just, like, don't have the energy to do, like, I don't know, even just, like, basic upkeep stuff, like dishes and shit, so it's, like, fucking trying to write a billion words on top of that, it just seems physically impossible. Also, just, like, I don't know, I don't know if anyone else has this, but, like, I write pretty infrequently just because, like, I don't know, I'm not especially confident in my writing unless I have, like, unless it's an idea that is, like, banging against the walls of my skull, just, unless it is, like, such a strong idea that, like, I kind of have to get it out on paper. I feel like, if I'm not feeling that, like, rush of enthusiasm, then I don't know, then the product doesn't come out as good, and I don't really, like, feel confident enough in it to, like, keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the main motivator that gets me to write is actually deadlines. If I think back on my most productive days, it's when I set a challenge on my blog that people could send me 3 words, and I would write a poem with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then thinking back on stories that I've actually finished, it was always for contests that I would enter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't write if I don't feel any kind of pressure. So I haven't written in a long time, but I know that the moment there's going to be an open stage or some free podium shit going on in town again, that's when I'll write.
Oh.
So that I have new shit to bring on stage. I've given up on the idea of ever publishing anything, but I am able to write if someone tells me it needs to be done by this date.
Yeah, that's like...
I gotta homework it. I gotta make it an assignment.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, that's the idea behind doing Nano, is that there's a deadline.
No, that's too many deadlines. I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that as well. Like, I guess the last piece of, like, real deadline writing I did was, for Sonic Shuffle 69, because, that had a submission deadline that got moved back a couple weeks after I submitted.
Yep.
But yeah, like, I fucking banged out 4,500 words in 3 days, which is very impressive for me, and Yeah, that was one where I could kind of just sit down and write without any, like, you know, ideas already in my head. Just kind, but also, you know, the intention of that story was to be very stream of conscious and just to be kind of like absurd and wild and manic. But yeah, writing out stuff that needs to be planned is a lot more difficult.
It's hard. It's real, like, that was always my hardest thing, was planning out stories. Like, even in high school, even when I did Nano, like, if I've looked back at one of those, because I still had one of them, and you know, it's kind of hard to look back at your old writing. The further I get from it, the easier it is to look back, because then I'm like, I'm not that person anymore. I know, like, I'm sure some people feel the other way around about it, but I'm very like, that's not me.
No, I also need the distance between me and my words.
Yeah, no.
I was like 16 at most, you know, like, who cares?
Yeah. I look with revulsion upon, you know, writing that I've done that is more than a few years old, you know. I don't like being reminded of the person that I was when I was less developed than I am now.
When I was skimming this stuff that I found, even that was like a little hard for me to like get through. Not just because I didn't have a lot of time, but also because I was like, ooh, this is probably how I would write now, and I don't like how it sounds, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
it's very like that. It's very like, oh, I definitely wrote this in it like without any edits, and like it shows.
Yeah.
Like,
I do like reading old stuff. I feel like we should be kinder to the old stuff that we've written. I need to be
probably
kinder to old me. They did their best, but you know what? They were going through life calling themselves she, her, and that was, how can we expect good writing? From someone, yeah.
Yeah, it's just funny because, like, I've done probably the most writing that I've done in a long time because of our tabletop games that I'm doing, like, with Emory and Spike, because I'm writing, like, side stories about characters or, like, thoughts that characters had in the middle of scenes, since our sessions are kind of short. I'm like, I want them to kind of go through scenes and be like, how did you feel during this moment in time? And that's like, this is the most I've written in a long time.
Yeah.
And like,
tabletop is like so good for writing, because, you know, it takes off some of the burden of like doing all the story yourself, because, you know, you have different people interacting with it, and like, yeah, you know, that can like spark ideas that can, you know, like develop into side stories. Like, we'll probably talk about it when I do my interstitial episode, but yeah, I did a fair number of like side stories for you know, just like stuff that was happening with the NPCs in the background. And yeah. Also, like, just like, I kind of learned to write just by like doing D&D campaigns and like, you know, writing down descriptions ahead of time, you know, for stuff that would come up in the session. I mean, nowadays I just improvise shit a lot more, but you know, and I kind of feel like that has like influenced my writing style a lot. Like, yeah, the kind of the prose that I want to default to is more of like a, you know, present tense second person, and you know, I kind of have to adjust from that.
Yeah, a lot of my like side stories end up being second person, because a lot of yours and Patrick's and stuff, like, if you guys are writing stories, a lot of times you'll use you. Either because
I feel like that's mainly Patrick. I don't remember one I've done recently. Although
I think it is Patrick.
Did I use second person for the dating sim section of
of
matching wits?
I think you might have.
I might have.
but like Patrick does it because it's very Homestead.
Yeah.
But like, and that for the most part, I don't. If I'm writing like stories, and not like tabletop based stories, I don't really like writing in second person. But like, I will occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like really like happy that I'm writing a lot more than I have been. But it also means that sometimes while I'm running a game, because I'm running a game now, I would like to talk about that at some point on this podcast, but some of it's very spoilery, so I don't know.
Yeah, I would love to talk about Snake once we get further into the campaign and like have a little more development, you know?
I have a whole backstory about like Tom, and I can't talk about it, and that sucks.
Oh, I want to know more about Tom.
Yeah, since it won't come up for a while, Tom is a surprise sibling that holy shit. I'm gonna do that all the time. I've done that like so many times where I've called Spike Snake and vice versa. And I'm like, Spike is a person, Snake is a fictional being. Spike, our co-host Spike, has a character with a sibling that she didn't know about and no one else knows about, because that's how this game works.
Yeah, she kind of got mass amnesia out of he kind of got mass amnesia out of existence, it seems.
Yep, we love it. I can't talk too much about him, but yeah, sorry. That's not about
now that we've gone off on a huge tangent.
No, I think it's important because I was talking about like Nano, and hell, if there's going to be a day sometime in the future, embarrassing or not, that I will talk about my live journal I posted a 2010 Nano story to that is about werewolves and vampires. That will come up in the future because I can't seem to help myself from embarrassing myself.
Great, hell yeah.
So like this will be a theme, but yeah, no, this one was like barely a Nano. It just like, it's interesting. I had a folder that was like 2019 Nano. I was like, oh yeah, I did part of this for that. And I also did Spindle Wheel for the characters. Like,
oh, hell yeah.
That'll be a thing because now I have the actual deck. But I've talked about that, how I kind of wanted to like try to do some shit about that on the podcast maybe, but
I also have the Spindle Wheel card, so we could do something together.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Hell yeah.
That'd be cool as hell. But yeah, like I don't know exactly where Gabe, 10, and Kata will go because that was kind of my thing. Like I didn't have plans for it. I was just like, they're growing close together because they're traveling together. It's very like what it came down to, and they run into all kinds of stuff. And at some point, like early on in the story, something happened to Kaida where she has a little demon living inside of her now that's not really evil. Demon in the sense of like how they translate yokai, I guess, to demon.
Yeah.
Where it's like, they could be either. I don't know. They're just living their own lives. But, you know, obviously there's something there because it's like, well, they can only interact with the world through a person. And Kaida's not their first host. And there's a lot there with that. And they're, like, by far the oldest character, but they're also, like, very ambiguous, and they're, like, there's conflict there, because they're like, wow, am I actually a person now? Because I'm spending time with this fucking shonen protagonist?
Yeah, we love fucking developing an identity, you know, like...
Unless we're Kaiba, then we hate that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that resonates, like, kind of, you know, for me as a trans ace person, because, you know, a lot of that experience is just, like, kind of figuring yourself out from scratch, you know? Like, you don't really just see enough people like you out in the world, you know, that you kind of just have to make it up as you go, and it is, like, you know, so helpful to your, like, own development and sense of identity to have, like, you know, other trans people and other ace people that you can, you know, yeah, I don't really have a word for it, but yeah, you get what I mean. Yeah,
Share experiences with.
That's something too, that I was having a hard time with, like, the robot, because I was like, I don't want them. They were coming across as, like, Arrow Ace, and like, I had this hard time with being like, okay, I don't want to make the robot the Arrow Ace character. I want a actual person being Arrow Ace or Arrow or A, like, separately. Like, I was like, I don't want it, you know. It's one thing if I'm like if I'm non-binary and I make a non-binary robot, I feel a lot more okay with doing that than doing that with, like, Arrow and Ace people as someone who is not identifying, more or less not identifying as Arrow Ace.
I'd say like my advice for that, like my personal take, and, you know, I'm not, like, fucking speaking for everyone who has an opinion on Ace representation, obviously, but, like, I'm fine with an Arrow Ace robot. I like it. You know, if you want to, like, kind of avoid the shitty trope of, like, you know, marginalized character, like, being associated with, like, non-humanity, you know, then, you know, you can have Ace robot, but then also just, like, have an Ace human or tiefling or whatever, like, the, you know, the sort of more, the more standard inhabitants of the universe, you know?
Yeah, that was my thought. I think there were other reasons I didn't want to, like, necessarily stick with them, also, but, that was part of it. I was like, I don't know, I don't want them to just be, like, excluded. Because I did, like, very purposely, like, go into this story. Well, I went into this story just, like, writing characters, and then after a little bit, I was like, oh, I want them all to end up together, because I don't see a lot of, like, polyamory stories that are, like, you know, like,
and
maybe a little bit more sci-fi, just because it's like, oh, it's the future, so, like, gender and sexuality is more okay or whatever, but, like, I still see it a lot less. Like, you still don't see a ton of, like, polyam relationships in, like, Star Trek, like, they, you know, like...
I get what you mean, because I read actually recently, and by recently I mean in the last 6 months, read a book, and it had 3 people who were interested in each other. It was like, oh, wow, they would make such a good polyamorous couple. Wow, that would sure be convenient. And I gaslighted myself into thinking that wasn't what was going on, because it was very much canon. It was canon. They were trouble. That was the end game of the book.
Hell yeah.
And I was so not ready for that. I was super excited. But, like, yeah, it's so uncommon that sometimes I forget that it's an actual option, that sometimes people do write that.
Yeah. It's always, like, a lot of indie creators that do that kind of stuff. But I guess I would be considered that if I ever actually published this.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, and, like, you know, kind of going back to what you were saying, like, yeah, like, that does sound really challenging, like, the idea of, like, you know, including an Arrow Ace character in, like, a very romance-focused story, and, like, also have, you know, having them also, like, feel like part of the in-group, you know? And, yeah, I Yeah, if you know, if you're not abandoning like the concept of the character entirely, like I guess my advice for that is just like have them have like at least like one really close like friendship that can still sort of like, you know, stand on the level of the more, you know, romantic relationships, you know.
Yeah, they were gonna have like a queer platonic relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Kaida, actually. Like, that was kind of how it was gonna... But, yeah, there was a lot of, like, various reasons why I was like... But I want them to, like, stick around maybe as, like, a side character. Or, like, a character that maybe is in a relationship with someone else. Or, like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's... Yeah. I was kind of going into this being like, this is a, like, kind of sci-fi adventure, but it's kind of also, like, got romance elements without them necessarily, like, I don't want to, like, if it's, like, classified as, like, this is a romance book, like, that can have a whole different, like, set of issues that I don't necessarily want to deal with either, but I do want it to be like, oh, they're together, that's the end game kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's obviously a ton up in the air with this story. There's a lot going on in this story. I've definitely had a lot of feelings about, like, what if I, like, narrowed some of this stuff down, but, like, there's things I don't want to necessarily get rid of if I am narrowing down some of the ideas. Like, I'm kind of attached to certain things.
Yeah.
That I would feel sad about giving up. Like, I would feel sad if I, like, cut out Trick, the demon guy, because I was like, oh, maybe if I wanted it to be more focused on the three, but I'm like, I'm really attached to them. Could they be part of this? I mean, people ship Venom and Eddie Brock for a reason, like, you know, like, but I don't know. There's a lot, like, where I'm like, what would they use these powers for? What would it, you know, would I want any sort of, like, actual action fighting, or is that more just, like, they have these powers but do other things with them? You know, and then Gabe with their, like, plant powers and their cult background, like, that's kind of crazy. Like, do I want to keep both parts? Do I not? You know?
Yeah.
But I'm just like, yeah, I want tenacity around as a tiefling, and I want tieflings to be like, a lot of them call themselves with ideal names. That's how tenacity came about. You know, they're named after things like tenacity and hope and fucking, I don't know, ideals.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of see that as as an example for, like, what tieflings call themselves and stuff. But it's really funny because tenacity did not start off as being a tiefling. They started off because I was listening too much of 10 Speed by Coyote and Cambria, who is a demon bicycle.
Great.
And so I was like, I kind of separated that out. If anything, Patrice does more like the demon bicycle, I guess. But not really. Even that's not even true, but they're still closer, whereas, like, tenacity is just like a dude, but who happens to also be, like, non-human. And I just kept picturing them in, like, a dress with a tail sticking out, and it was very cute.
Hell yeah.
So, like, in some,
You're
like,
correct.
I think, yeah, like, sometimes, I think I pictured them a lot in, like, if they're wearing, like, business stuff, it's, like a blazer, like, the more, like, masculine top, and, like, more, like, feminine bottom, because it's just easier for, like, their tail sticking out and stuff to be wearing a dress or something. And I'm just like, I kind of love them, and I keep thinking about them, and I'm like, wow, I want them to be an asshole and not, like, become less of an asshole and stuff.
Yeah.
And I love that.
We love character development. So I have an idea that's kind of been floating around in my head for like half the episode. So
Yeah, sure.
let me run this by you. So at some point I want to do, I promised that at some point I would do part 2 of Grey Pollen. And, the thing with the first episode is, I kind of felt like it was hard to talk about like a story that I hadn't like fully written yet. So kind of before I want to go back to part 2, I want to like actually like commit to like finishing the script, because I know where I want it to start and I know where I want it to end, and like. Yeah,
that's impressive.
Before
It is impressive.
Before I like really bring that back, I kind of want to have like something to show, so like I can like give it to all of you, and like so you can form like actual takes about it when we discuss it on the episode. So yeah, so if you like want some extra motivation to like actually commit this story to paper, like we could maybe just like soft schedule the idea of like having a part 2 to your thing, and like when you're feeling like you have maybe like a month or 2 to actually commit to writing, then we can like put a deadline on that and be like, okay, here's when we're gonna record part 2 episode for Morg, and then you can like come back to this like if when things are like fleshed out more and committed to paper.
I kind of like that, like at least in theory. Like I'm not sure like how far in the future that'll be or anything.
Again, like going back to fucking NaNoWriMo, I feel like I wouldn't want to like fucking force anyone to just like sit in a chair and write when they're not like don't have like the time and energy to commit to it. So like like when you think would be a good time for you, we can sort of set like a soft deadline for it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that makes sense. Like especially because like we both have like plenty of other guys to talk about, and we've already started having people rolling in with like wanting to present their guys.
Yeah.
We have plenty of content where we can like come back to this in the future.
Yeah, so many people have like expressed interest in guesting, and like, wow, thank you so much for your interest. I think we are gonna open up guest signups real soon, and there's a lot of people who want in, so we're gonna have to figure out how to set that up.
Editor's note, we have opened guest signups, and we have figured out how we're going to collect those submissions. So go to the Check Out This Guy Discord, and you will find a pinned Google form in the general chat that you can submit to us to express your interest in coming on and telling us about guys.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Especially because, like, we also want to be on it, and, like, we also can't all 4 of us and a guest be on it, so it'll be very interesting to figure out, like, how that's gonna go, but it's like, we can always listen to it later, but that'll be interesting.
We're gonna have to plan things.
We're gonna have to play some, like, rock, paper, scissors about who goes on the podcast. No.
I want to try. Yeah, I want to commit to like the 3-person limit as much as possible, because editing 4-person episodes take a lot longer.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's probably as good a place as any to like stop, because like a lot of my other stuff is just like long stories about like not stories, like long things that I've planned out that were based on like the Spindle Wheel game, or like short stories based on like prompts that like I haven't really had a chance to like read through and see if any of it's like worth talking about. So I care a lot about Ten, Kaida, and Gabe, and I hope at some point I can write something more about them.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
I also hope you write more about them.
My gay babies.
All right, so do we want to jump to our plugs?
Talking, I don't know. You can find me at Haunting the Morg on Tumblr and Twitter. You can find me at Gengar on co-host. You can find me on my other podcasts, the Sonic Shuffle, a random and holistic Sonic lore podcast, and it's back now.
We're back.
Actually.
Yeah, you just published the 3-year anniversary episode where I was on, and guess what? We all made up guys live on air, and I love my little guy of Pineapple the Squirrel.
Yeah.
The Nightmare Beast.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And my, like, edgy, dark, pulse-using deer, whatever, named Tank. My other podcast, 4 Zero Watch podcast. That's it for me.
Right. I have a Twitter, which is at Eruviru, and I think that's the main one, really.
All right, I'm Emory. I'm on For Affinity with the username Space Robot. I got my gallery there with a lot of the guys that I've made up and drawn. So you can check that out if you want some guys of your own with you know, to have artwork to their name. Then you can contact me about a commission, hit me up on Discord, or spacerobotart@gmail.com. I only charge $25 for a full body, flat color portrait, so I think that's pretty affordable. You don't even need to have like a ref sheet or anything. Just tell me what the dang guy looks like and I'll come up with something.
I feel like that's actually great because like half the art of our podcast art is probably your art. And
yeah,
so
I think it's like fucking 12 out of the 20 portraits or something.
Yeah, so like if you want an example of kind of what some of their art looks like, it's on there.
Yeah, just hold your phone real close to your eyes.
You can look at it on a computer.
I mean, you could.
Or zoom in on a phone.
Whatever.
Listen.
Yeah, I'm also on a podcast called We Rate Queerbait, where we explore the blurry line between homie and homo. I'm also on an upcoming audio drama pilot, details on which should be forthcoming. So this podcast has a Discord server where we're doing all sorts of funny stuff. I do art streams on Friday. We do Tokusatsu Mondays where we watch Kamen Rider Double and Garo. Pretty fun place, fun little server, you know, not so busy that you're getting like overwhelmed with you know, new messages all the time. It's, you know, it's kind of quiet, but you know, we still have some good discussion there. We also have social media for this show, right?
We do.
We got a co-host, we got a Tumblr. Both are Check Out This Guy, right? Yeah.
Yes, they are. Check Out This Guy. Checkoutthisguy.tumblr.com or cohost.org/checkoutThisGuy. They have... I actually posted the Noise Space link on them now, so... And the Discord!
Hell yeah.
So maybe we'll be getting more people. I don't know.
Speaking of Noise Space, this podcast is part of the noisespace.xyz network. You can go to noisespace.xyz and check out all sorts of neat shows there. And yeah, Morg, want to make up an outro for this episode?
Not really. We checked out some guys. And now we can check out your guys. No, guys.
We checked
have
out
been
some
checked
guys. We
out.
saw them with our eyes.
I checked out some guys at the grocery store today. Wait, that could mean multiple things, because it could be like I checked them out with my eyes, or like, you know, like you're like, I want to check out that guy.
Yeah.
Or it could be like, oh, I'm checking them out at the cash register, which is actually what I meant. I like scanned them into my little grocery bag, and I'm taking them home with me.
Yeah. Did the guys come in, you know, a package with a barcode, or did you have to like weigh them on the little produce scale? And put in the little number on the sticker.
Number, yeah. I had to put a number in most of them. They didn't want to wear a barcode on their ass.
Bizarre. Who wouldn't want that?
Right. I don't really want a sticker of a barcode like on my face to be scanned.
Yeah, it sounds like a bad idea.
I feel like because there could be something like hotels, like you checked into the OC hotel.
Mm.
And we're checking out of the OC hotel now.
We're checkout time is right now o'clock.
We'll come up with something eventually.
Yeah, make sure you didn't leave your phone charger in the room.
I had a visual of like the cleaning crew just being like, checkout time is now, and throwing all my stuff out of the window.
Oh no!
Like, oh no, my OCs.
Check out this guy. You can check out, but you can never leave.
Great. We're still working on it. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.